You're listening to Soundside. I'm Paige Browning. May the 4th be with you, because today is Star Wars Day. For nearly 50 years, the Star Wars franchise has captured the hearts of so many sci-fi and fantasy fans. And for a lot of people, it's all about the droids.
R2-D2, where are you?
This past weekend, that love of droids was on full display at both the Museum of Flight and at a Barnes & Noble in Northgate.
Hi, my name's James from Seattle. I'm part of the R2 Builders Club.
He and his fellow club members build and demonstrate life-size replicas of the beloved droids. Some of them can be driven around using remote control. The R2 unit James brought to Northgate looks and sounds just like what you would see on the screen. And it's a hit with kids who fawn over it.
So when you have a little kid come up and you just see their eyes light up, they can't see that there's somebody remote controlling the device, so to speak, but instead to them it's just R2-D2, the little guy from the movie that they like, and just seeing that it's like, it is genuinely them meeting a character and not standing next to an object. It never gets tiring.
Speaking of kids, droid builders say it's a great opportunity to get people excited and involved with STEM projects. For this Star Wars Day, we wanted to learn more about the craft and dedication that goes into making these droids, so we're speaking with Scott Ransom. He's got a lot of expertise in robots. That's because he's a director of a research center at Northwestern University that researches and develops robotic hands that can help with tasks. Scott, thanks for being here.
Paige, thanks so much for having me.
So first things first, what is it about building droids that drew you in?
You know, I grew up on a farm, and my parents pretty much
Oh,
let
so
me
that
take
says
over.
it all. You grew up on a farm, and I love this.
It does. There's not a lot else to do. No, they pretty much gave me a table in the cellar where I took apart radios and anything I could
Wow.
get my hands on and learned electronics and started building little robots. And like a lot of people, I fell in love with R2-D2 from Star Wars. My whole career has involved using engineering to try and help people and improve lives. And during my time at UW and Northwestern doing research in robotics, I encountered this amazing community, this R2 Builders Club, where people are actually building recreations of R2-D2. It's really the perfect blend of engineering and creativity and fandom. So for me, it's been a way to connect my professional work in robotics with something that inspires people emotionally.
I can picture that journey. You're a young person and you're tinkering at a table in your family's farm. And then here you are in a university environment, being able to build and tinker on such a bigger scale. How much time and expertise and cost goes into making one of these?
You know, it really varies. Most builders spend hundreds to thousands of hours over months or even years doing that kind of thing. Cost-wise, you're looking at a few $1,000s on low end, and it can go up much higher depending on how detailed and accurate you want. But in terms of being able to do it, that expertise, it's actually really accessible. People come in with different backgrounds, and they learn as they go. That's one of the most powerful parts of that builder community we have here in Seattle is people are willing to share what expertise they have and the things they've learned and trade ideas and talk about their failures so others can learn from those. I think that makes the community really powerful.
So we're talking about building a droid. What is the hardest part about building something like an R2 unit?
You know, one of the hardest parts is that it's not just one problem, it's many problems layered together. You know, you've got mechanical systems, electronics, and programming and sound design. And on top of that, it has to feel alive. Getting that personality right, that's where it goes from being a machine to something people really connect with. And that was something that Tony Dyson, the builder of the first R2-D2 for Star Wars, something he did so well. He also encountered challenges like having his R2 work in the desert of Tunisia where they were filming, where sand would blow into the gears and the sun would overheat the electronics.
Because these are working machines. These are working units.
Working units that have to work in environments that are harsh. So we don't have those sorts of problems here in the Seattle area, but we do have spouses that may or may not be enthusiastic about a life-size R2-D2 roaming around the house. So, you know, it's a variety of challenges.
I'm sure. Yeah, the spouse can be a challenge depending on your household.
That's right.
So you're here in the Seattle area, and you're working with the Droid Builders Club to bring a working R2 unit to the Seattle Public Library. Tell us about that project.
I'm really thrilled about this. We're bringing a live R2 unit to the Seattle Public Library, as you said, as part of a STEM outreach event
Mm.
connected to the Tony Dyson biography. It's the 10-year anniversary of his passing, and the biography is to honor that. And the idea is simple. Kids come for the excitement. They see R2-D2 roll in, and then we connect that moment to real engineering. We talk about the story of how Tony Dyson built R2-D2. We include basic STEM concepts, show how robots work, how they're built, and then we give kids a hands-on activity so they can start building things themselves. It's really going to be a fun event. And in the meantime, before the public library event, we'll also be doing this kind of event at a variety of bookstores like the Northgate Barnes& and Noble that we did, and museums and some schools in the area.
You answered this a bit, but I'm wondering if you can elaborate on what you hope kids will take away from learning about how robots like these work.
I hope they realize that it isn't magic. It's something that they can learn to do.
Hmm.
That curiosity, taking things apart, asking how does it work? That's exactly how engineers get started. There's so much technology in kids' lives today, way more than I had when I was growing up. And I want kids to see themselves not just as consumers of that technology, but as future creators of it. If a kid walks away thinking, I could build something like that someday, then I think we've done our job.
Hmm. I have to admit something to you, Scott. I don't know that much about Star Wars, but I have an appreciation for it, and I could name R2-D2 if I saw it, on the side of the street. I know who that character is. It's very embedded in our culture, even for people who don't know that much about this world and droid building. So why do you think R2-D2 as a character has been so endearing to both adults and to kids?
Yeah, that's a really great question. R2-D2 doesn't speak English, doesn't have a face. In it, he's one of the most expressive characters. And as you said, even though you're not involved in Star Wars, you can recognize R2-D2, right? You can recognize this robot from a movie. He's brave, loyal, a little mischievous, right? And he shows that personality through motion and sound. In a way, he represents one thing that we're trying to do in robotics, which is create machines that people can connect with emotionally. Tony Dyson and others involved in R2's creation, they really crafted something unique and special in it.
Hmm. Okay, you just mentioned Tony Dyson. You've also written a biography, Tony Dyson, the man who built R2-D2. Why was it important for you to tell his story?
Oh, I had the great privilege to work with Tony, both professionally and personally,
Hmm.
towards the end of his life. He was an incredible engineer, but for him, it was never about just building robots. It was building robots that people could connect with emotionally. It was teaching others to be curious. And you said at the top of the show, and tinker. That was a word that was really special to him. And importantly, embrace their mistakes. His story shows that innovation doesn't come from getting it right the first time. It comes from experimenting, failing, and trying again. For kids especially, I think that's such an important message. You don't
Hmm.
have to be perfect. You just have to be curious and persistent. And that mindset is really the heart of this biography.
Hmm.
Tony was also so passionate about promoting not only STEM, but creativity to kids. So to that end, I put in the book Think Like Tony questions, where kids can explore their curiosity, and try it sections to help kids understand how things actually work and see themselves as builders, not just users. I
Hmm.
wanted the book to capture that spirit that Tony embodied so well, and to not only tell his story, but in doing so, engender the passion that he had into the next generation of engineers. And that, I think, is what he would have wanted his legacy to be.
Hmm. Scott, I'm also wondering, what is it about the community of builders here in the Pacific Northwest, where we are, that's important to you? Is there anything notable about this community of droid makers?
The Pacific Northwest has this incredible maker culture. People who love building, sharing knowledge, and helping each other. What stands out about the R2 Builders Club is how generous they are with their time and expertise. I'm working with one of the club members, James Adams, who's operating the R2 unit that we're using at these events.
Hmm.
He's willing to hop on a ferry and come over to do these. We're not getting paid to do them,
Hmm.
and a ferry trip is not cheap these days, but he's so willing to do it because of the impact it can have on kids.
Right.
So they're not just building robots, they're willing to give of themselves to inspire the next generation. And that's just so terrific, especially at a time when, when funding for STEM programs isn't what it used to be at the government level. So having grassroots efforts like this is especially critical right now.
How can people find out more about the Pacific Northwest Droid Builders Club?
The best way is to look up the Pacific Northwest R2 Builders Club online. They have forums, build logs, and community resources. You don't have to be a builder to join the forum. It's really for anyone who has an interest and wants to see what this amazing community is up to. There are also local groups here in the Pacific Northwest that participate in events like this. They're annually at the Museum of Flight, as you mentioned. They have the R2 Builders Club Expo there, so people can see these droids in person. They also have other events during the year, but join the forum and just start exploring. It's a really welcoming community.
Scott, I have to ask if you've seen an R2 unit that has been your favorite over the years, or a feature of one that is notable for you as people are getting into maybe tinkering on their own.
It's cool to see all the creativity that these guys have in the Builders Club. One of the neat things is, and I was talking to James about this recently, they all like to have a different attachment to their droid that comes from the movie. Like, for example, Tony Dyson built 8 different robots for the first Star Wars movie because each one couldn't do all the things that R2-D2 needed to do in the movie. So we had to have 8 of these. And some of the builders are building the periscope. And Paige, you would know this because maybe you haven't seen the movies, but there's one scene where R2-D2 is under the water and he uses this periscope that comes out of his head to navigate, which is great. But if you're actually building a R2-D2 whose head has to turn, but the periscope has to retract, that's a real engineering challenge to make that work, right? So one of the challenges this group has is each one wants to make this neat attachment or device that's a part of R2 that was shown in the movies. And so they really like to showcase those. And that's really fun to see when they go beyond just making an R2-D2 that moves around and has the sounds, but actually has something like the doors that open, or the third leg that comes out and stabilizes to make the tripod as it moves.
That's so cool.
All these cool features that these guys put together is just really amazing to see.
Wow. Okay, it has been too long since I've seen the movies, so I have my homework for the week, Scott. Dr. Scott Ransom is the director of the Industry and Innovation Center for Human Augmentation via Dexterity at Northwestern University. Thank you so much for talking R2-D2 with me.
Paige, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime right here online at KUOW.org, or of course on your favorite podcast app.